Radio, there's a occupant inside. Send us some squad now. We gotta bust the window out. Send us some more units.
Any more units to Progress and Alameda?
Now!
Put them going.
This is not a fresh accident either. She's been here for a while. Radio, we got at least 2 occupants in here. No one's moving. Oh my God. Oh my God. Times 3, guys. Radio, 3 occupants. No one's conscious.
July 31st, 2022. A quiet night in Strongsville, Ohio. A dead-end street, with no traffic and no warning. Just the kind of place where nothing is supposed to happen. But something actually did happen. A car was already moving fast, too fast for a street that ended in a brick wall. Inside were 3 teenagers, a boyfriend, a friend, and a 17-year-old girl behind the wheel. Minutes earlier, there had been an argument. A witness would later say those words were spoken out loud, sharp, direct, and impossible to ignore. "I will crash this car right now." And then, the car moved, accelerating 100 miles per hour. No brake lights, no turn, and no escape route. Just a straight line toward impact. A brick wall at the end of the road. The crash came seconds later. 2 people didn't survive it. 1 person did. And what followed wasn't just an investigation into what happened that night. It became a case that people would argue about for years. Before anything happened, before the headlines, before the courtrooms and the documentaries. They were just people, not cases, not names in a file, just families living normal lives. Dominic Russo was one of them. He was young. He had a girlfriend, friends, plans, and things most people his age assume will still be there tomorrow. But tomorrow never came for him. To his mother, Christine Russo, he wasn't part of a story or a case number. He was her son. And after that night, everything in her life split into before and after. Davion Flanagan was there too. He was Dominic's friend. Just another teenager spending time with people he knew. He didn't make it home either. His mother, Jamie Flanagan, ended up in the same courtroom as Christine, listening to the same details, and hearing the same words no parent should ever have to hear. 2 mothers, different lives, same outcome. Christine Russo and Jamie Flanagan are really at the center of this story. Not because they were part of what happened, but because of what they were left with after it. The absence, the silence, the questions that don't go away. At one point, Netflix came forward wanting to tell this case to a wider audience. But both mothers said no. They didn't want their son's story retold the way others had shaped it. They didn't want it turned into something they felt left out the parts that mattered most. And that's where things get complicated. Because when the people closest to the victims refuse the version being told, you're left wondering what the full story really is. We'll come back to that. But first, we need to understand how it all began. Strongsville, Ohio, a quiet business park with a dead-end road. July 31st, 2022. Nothing about the night suggested anything unusual would happen here. But it did. Mackenzie Shirilla was 17. She was in a car with 2 people she knew well. Her boyfriend, Dominic Russo, and his friend, Davion Flanagan. Just 3 teenagers. On a normal ride, on a normal night. At least, that's how it started. But something changed before they even left. There had been an argument. A witness later told investigators they heard shouting near the vehicle. Tension, anger, and voices raised in the dark. And then, something else. A statement that would later resurface in court. "I will crash this car right now." After that moment, everything escalated quickly. They got into the car, and the vehicle started moving. At first, it didn't seem different from any other drive, but then the speed increased. Faster and faster. Investigators would later estimate speeds approaching 100 miles per hour, on a road with no destination at the end of it. Just a dead end waiting ahead. There was no turn, no intersection, no escape route, only distance, closing in too fast. And then, impact. A brick wall at full force. No successful braking, no recovery, no correction, just collision. When it was over, two of the people in that car were gone. Dominic Russo, Davion Flanagan, dead on the spot. Mackenzie Shirilla survived, and what investigators found afterward added another layer to the case. Inside the wreckage, they reported discovering drugs, psilocybin mushrooms, a digital scale, details that immediately raised questions about what led up to that night and what state of mind everyone in that car might have been in. But the most important question wasn't answered at the scene. It came later, in court, before the trial began. Mackenzie Shirilla made a choice that immediately changed the direction of the case. She waived her right to a jury. That meant no 12 strangers would decide what happened to her. No public debate in a jury room. No split opinions. No emotional back and forth between multiple perspectives. Just one person, a judge, and that decision mattered. Because in a bench trial, everything comes down to how one mind interprets the evidence. What they believe, what they see, and what they are convinced of beyond doubt. So the judge reviewed the case piece by piece. The location, a dead-end road. No intersection ahead. No clear reason for a high-speed drive in that direction. The speed, roughly 100 miles per hour, according to investigators. A speed that left almost no margin for correction. The accident, a brick wall at full force. No sign of braking that would suggest an attempt to stop in time. Then came the testimony. A witness account describing an argument shortly before the crash, and a statement attributed to Mackenzie earlier that night. "I will crash this car right now." And finally, the outcome inside the vehicle itself. 3 people entered that car. Only one walked away alive. Dominic Russo, Davion Flanagan, both killed on the spot. After reviewing all of it, the judge delivered a verdict. Guilty on 12 counts, including murder. She was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison, with parole eligibility set for October 2037. She would be 33 years old at the time. But even after the verdict, the story didn't end. Because Mackenzie Shirilla maintained something very different from what the court concluded. She said she is not a murderer. She said she has no memory of what happened that night. And her defense pointed to a medical condition called POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, suggesting she may have lost consciousness behind the wheel. The court heard that argument. And still, it wasn't enough. Because in the end, the question the judge had to answer wasn't about what was claimed. It was about what the evidence showed. And what it showed, in his view, was enough to convict. But even with a verdict delivered, one question still lingers underneath everything. What exactly happened in those final moments inside that car? Something feels off. This is where the story changes direction. Not because the facts changed, but because the way the story was told did. 3 years after the crash, Netflix released a documentary. It was called The Crash. And for the first time since her conviction, Mackenzie Shirilla spoke publicly. On camera, from prison, she maintained her innocence. She talked about life inside prison. She spoke about regret. And she said she thinks about Dominic Russo and Davion Flanagan every single day. At moments, she broke down. And suddenly, millions of people were watching. And just like that, the conversation split. Some people believed her. Some people didn't. Some people weren't even sure what to think anymore. But almost immediately, another question started spreading online. A question the documentary didn't really answer. Where were the mothers? Christine Russo, Jamie Flanagan, the 2 women whose sons never came home that night. According to reports, both were approached to take part in the documentary. Both declined. No interviews, no on-camera statements, no participation, and no detailed explanation was ever made public. And that silence became its own kind of statement. Because what people noticed was not just who was included in the story, but who wasn't. A documentary about a crash that killed 2 young men was released to a global audience, but without the voices of the mothers who raised them. Instead, the person convicted in the case was given space to speak at length, to explain herself, to tell her version of events, be seen. And that's where the reaction became divided again. Because to some viewers, it felt like closure, a chance to understand the person behind the headlines. But to others, it felt incomplete, one-sided. And still, the biggest question remained unanswered. Not just what happened that night, but who gets to define what it means, because Christine Russo and Jamie Flanagan didn't speak in that documentary. They didn't correct it, they didn't participate in it. They didn't challenge it publicly in the same space. They simply stayed silent. And that silence leaves something behind. Not answers, but questions. And maybe that's the part people are still trying to figure out. While the Netflix documentary was being filmed, another part of this case was still unfolding quietly in the background. The legal process wasn't over. Mackenzie Shirilla's team continued to challenge the conviction. They filed appeals, 3 in total, and all 3 were denied. But it's the final attempt that stands out, the one that ended everything. Under Ohio law, there is a strict deadline for filing an appeal after trial transcripts are officially submitted. 365 days. 1 full year. Not more, not less. In Mackenzie's case, her legal team filed on day 366, just 1 day late. And because of that, the court ruled it had no jurisdiction to even consider the arguments being raised. Not the evidence, not the claims, not the details of the case. None of it could be reviewed. Her lawyers later argued that 2024 was a leap year and that she should have been granted an additional day. But the court rejected that argument. The deadline stood. 1 day, that was the difference. 1 day that determined whether the final appeal could even be heard. And it leaves behind a difficult reality. Because whether someone believes the conviction was right or wrong, whether they think the evidence was enough or not, the legal system closed the door on a technicality measured in hours, not intent. She was convicted at 17, and with that one missed deadline, the case stopped moving forward in the courts. 1 day, that's all it took for the final path of appeal to end. And sometimes, in cases like this, that's the part that lingers the most. Not just what was decided, but how close everything came to being reviewed one last time. This is where everything leaves the courtroom and enters the public. 2 young men are gone, Dominic Russo and Davion Flanagan. Their mothers are left with silence that doesn't go away. And at the center of it all, a case that has lived far beyond the courtroom walls. A documentary was released, and with it, Mackenzie Shirilla's voice was heard again. She spoke, she cried, she said her version of events, and suddenly, the case stopped being just a legal matter. It became something else, something people debated, argued about, picked apart online. Public figures commented. Social media reacted instantly. Everyone seemed to have an opinion, but behind all of that noise, there were still 2 families living with the same loss. Christine Russo and Jamie Flanagan, 2 mothers who chose not to take part in the documentary. No interviews, no statements, no public explanation, just absence. And that absence started to feel louder than anything else. Because while the world debated what happened, they were still living with what cannot be undone. There is no version of this story where Dominic Russo comes home. No version where Davion Flanagan gets another chance. No outcome that changes that part. No documentary can reverse it. No appeal can rewrite it. No discussion can fix what is already permanent. One person says she doesn't remember what happened. 2 mothers remember everything, and still chose not to speak publicly about it. Not on camera, not in interviews, not in response. Maybe that's not something that can be labeled so easily. Not justice, not injustice, just grief. The kind that doesn't perform, the kind that doesn't explain itself, the kind that simply exists. Quiet, heavy, unresolved. And while the world continues to argue about the case, some people have already stepped out of that conversation entirely. This story is called No Closure. Subscribe, because we are not yet done.